I'm Rebe Feraldi. I'm an environmental scientist working in the field of industrial ecology. I especially use life cycle assessment to perform sustainability analyses. Life cycle assessment, or LCA for short, is a very data-driven field where the whole life cycle of a product is considered. An LCA inventories all the material and energy inputs and outputs of a system and quantifies the physical impacts of that inventory on the environment, the lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, and biosphere. These analyses can be used at the product, organizational, consumer lifestyle, and country levels. Through my sustainability work, I have become familiar with the nuances of product and services systems ranging from fuels and mineral extraction, chemical manufacturing, materials fabrication, bio-based materials and food cultivation and processing, community infrastructure and building materials and designs, electronics and renewable energy technologies, to transportation and waste management systems, really anything that humans make and use. We call it the technosphere. LCA is really good for measuring impacts, setting benchmarks, quantifying the effects of specific changes. And though LCA is very good at highlighting what we call hotspots, that is, areas of relatively poor environmental performance, it's not particularly effective at inspiring innovation. For that, I've started to turn to another entity for inspiration: nature. Besides human innovators, there are 8 million other species on Earth that have achieved astonishing feats of engineering, operating under the same conditions as we, and most of them doing it at ambient temperatures and pressures. Biology has over 3.8 billion years of research and development under its belt, and only 1 out of every 100,000 of all species to have ever existed on Earth, or 0.01%, are still thriving today. That equates to some pretty high control standards. And in this light, we humans, with only 200,000 years of R&D, can be considered one of Earth's most youthful species, possibly with much to learn from the elders, or those that have survived the test of time. Biomimicry is an emerging field that looks to nature for inspiration to solve human design and engineering challenges. I've been watching this field emerge since I read Janine Benyus's Biomimicry book. I finally made time to seriously investigate this field in 2014, when I participated in a biomimicry immersion course in Costa Rica. This workshop got us in the field and observing firsthand what insight zooming into particular species, their processes, and whole systems could offer. Using the biomimicry approach, a biomimic asks not what an engineered design is, but rather what it does. Every challenge is turned into a verb and then biologized. That is, the question is asked, how would nature insert verb? There's an entire database compiled by the Biomimicry 3.8 Institute called Ask Nature, which has a search feature allowing users to tap into a functional taxonomy that identifies how different champion organisms have evolved to optimally overcome specific technical challenges such as adhering, coding, protecting, breaking down chemicals, sending signals, or even providing ecosystem services. The whole discipline of biomimicry is based on a set of deep patterns identified in natural systems. They're called life's principles, and a true emulation of these principles in human systems has the potential to transform our built environment into not only being sustainable, but also creating conditions conducive to human and really all life. I am now endeavoring to marry LCA and biomimicry because I see great potential in marrying the holistic and innovative nature of biomimicry to the quantitative life cycle nature of LCA. To demonstrate the utility of this amalgam approach, I intend to create a series of example applications in industrial systems. I started with printing and writing papers because I have experience analyzing these systems using LCA, and they're everywhere in human systems. LCA tells us that the primary hotspot of the printing and writing paper life cycle is hands down the pulp and paper making steps. Pulp and paper mills are very often co-located with forestry operations and so are in close proximity with some of our most sensitive and valuable ecoregions. This map shows North America's forest ecoregions in green, and pulp and paper mills are the red dots. Most printing and writing papers have certain performance requirements that must be met with kraft bleach pulp. This involves heating virgin wood pulp chips in a chemical bath to break down and whiten the fibers. Zooming into these steps and analyzing further, LCA reveals that the bulk of environmental impacts here are due to the energy required for producing and using chemical and bleaching agents at the pulping and processing the effluent to remove the associated byproducts. This means that one of the most rewarding applications of the biomimicry approach is to focus on pulp bleaching. So we ask, what is the function of whitening pulp? Well, it's to provide contrast to printed inks. That is, to impart visual whiteness. Using biomimicry, we ask, well, how would nature send signals in visible light to impart whiteness in a thin film surrounded by air? There are many examples of organisms in nature that look white. Several achieve this reflection of all visible wavelengths through pigments, but most do it through structural arrangements on the visible wavelength scale, that is, nanostructures. Though white is rare for the insect group, it turns out that they have achieved the most optimal thin film structures that impart bright whiteness. They have to balance bright coloration with mass, particularly for flight, so their coloration structures are ultra-thin and ultra-lightweight. These structures vary in implementation, but are consistently lightweight, directionally oriented, and disordered nanostructures that scatter visible light in the 400 to 700 nanometer wavelength range, reflecting all colors so that the reflected light appears white. As of this recording in 2019, there is current and active research into emulating these structures that have the potential to offer low-cost, effective, ultra-thin, and lightweight nanocoating material alternatives to chemical pigments, dyes, mineral fillers, and optical brighteners and whiteners in the paper industry. The next steps in this example would be to look into using biomimicry at the next set of hotspots identified with LCA. That is, the high energy consumption at treating the pulping effluent. For these issues, biomimicry shows us that fluids in nature move to optimize flow efficiency by following the path of least resistance. Just look at hurricanes, whirlpools, river deltas, or human lungs. Conversely, most of our industrial propellers, fans, pumps, and motors conventionally use shaft, cog, and wheel structures and pump through linear structures with right angles. Just by redesigning specific infrastructural components to include spiral forcing motors and vascular-like tubes, over half of energy requirements could be cut. Even better is that effluents moving with a centrifugal force have been proven to, instead of scaling and ruining pipe infrastructures over time, produce little mineral pellets that can be used in agriculture applications as fertilizers. And these are much more suited than conventional synthetic fertilizers to plant application because of their form. That is, they provide continuous rather than pulse releases of minerals. So the nutrients are taken up by plants at the rate they are released instead of adding to runoff and leachate. In conclusion, this paper case study demonstrates the utility of an LCA and biomimicry amalgam approach for opening up the design space at industrial design and engineering challenges and hotspots. For my next case study, I intend to focus on plastic food packaging applications for the same reasons I selected printing and writing papers. I have experience with these systems, and they're everywhere. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and if you have a system you're interested in analyzing, or any questions regarding the amalgam, go ahead and give me a note, and we can discuss it further. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.